Hello, hello, you beautiful soul. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you currently are. Welcome back to the Unapologetic You podcast with me, still, Kiana van Deurse, your coach for sexual liberation and empowerment. I want to start today's episode with something that I hope you'll really let sink in for once. Yeah, because we have spoken so much about it in the past couple of weeks, and I just want you to know that shame is not who you are. Shame is not who you are, it is what you learned. And that's a really important distinction because so many women, so many people that I have spoken to over the years simply believe that shame is, part of their personality. You probably have said it before or you've heard it before. I'm just a private person. I'm just not very expressive. I've never been comfortable talking about sex. I'm just simply not confident enough. But have you ever asked yourself that what if none of those things are actually true? What if they are simply adaptations? And what if the woman or the person that you've become isn't actually who you are at your core, but who you've learned to be in order to feel accepted, loved, and safe? Now let this one sink, please, because that is exactly why I created the Unapologetic Path. Because shame is not something you simply just think your way out of, right? Like overthinking is not going to help you. It is something that you gently uncover, that you gently understand and try to release. And today, that is exactly what I would like to talk about. I'm going to give you something else to think about it, yeah? And it's also something that I repeat to myself when I need to hear it again. You were not born ashamed. You were not born believing that your body was wrong. You were not born believing that your desires were inappropriate or that your needs were inappropriate. You were not born believing you needed to hide parts of yourself to deserve love. No. Darling, you learned that. Yeah, maybe it came from your family or the school you went to, maybe from your religion or the people around you in general, maybe from an ex-partner. Or maybe it came from society constantly telling women that they're either too much or not enough. Whatever the source of these beliefs, these messages became beliefs. And the sad thing about these beliefs can also be that they become patterns. And then, at some point in life, these patterns become your normal. And also eventually, you stop questioning them, right? Because they've been with you for so long, right? Like these patterns have been with you for so long that they simply start to feel like you. But they are not you. They are your conditioning. And for me personally, that was one of the most freeing realizations that I ever had. And I genuinely hope that is also one of the most freeing realizations that you will ever have. Because if something was learned, it can also be unlearned, right? Let that one sink in. If something was learned, it can also be unlearned. Now, the difficult thing about shame is that it rarely announces itself. Now, it doesn't just walk into your life saying, yo, hi, what's up, I'm Shame, nice to meet you. No, that sadly doesn't happen because if it did, we would be able to point it out so much quicker. No, shame disguises itself. Shame becomes perfectionism or people-pleasing, maybe overthinking. Maybe it shows up as the fear of being seen, constant self-criticism, the need to always get everything right before taking action. Or maybe it shows up as emotional numbness. You stop asking yourself what you truly want simply because somewhere along that way, wanting became dangerous. Yeah, and eventually you disconnect. And when you disconnect, you don't only do that from your desires, but you disconnect from yourself. And that's why shame doesn't only affect your relationship with sexuality. I mean, it definitely does, but just not only. It affects your confidence. Your confidence. Your damn confidence. It affects your voice. It affects your boundaries, your relationships, and of course, how you show up in these. Yeah. Shame affects your career, your creativity, your ability to give and receive love. Yeah. Because shame simply teaches you that it's safer to shrink than to be fully seen. And God, is living like that exhausting? And one thing that I hear all the time is, hey, but I do know where my shame comes from. Yeah. And absolutely, I'm happy about that because awareness matters. Yeah, it's beautiful that you know. It is absolutely the first step in your journey. But there's also something that I want you to remember about that. Since it's the first step in your journey, it doesn't mean that awareness alone creates transformation. Now think about it this way. You can know exactly, for example, where a splinter came from. Yeah, you can know how it got there, and you also understand why it hurts. But until you remove it, that splinter will continue to affect you, right? Like that splinter will continue to hurt you. It will continue to puncture your skin. And shame kind of works in the same way. Yeah, knowing is not enough. You have to move through it. You absolutely have to move through shame. You have to meet the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding with compassion instead of with judgment. And you have to create enough safety within yourself to finally stop hiding. Because awareness alone does not create transformation. Again, awareness is the first step, but you have to move through it. And that, my love, that is where healing begins. Healing doesn't begin when you finally understand your story. Healing begins when you stop allowing your story to define your future. Yeah, well, and that is exactly why I created the Unapologetic Path. It was not because I wanted to create another course filled with information. No, because out there is enough information. The whole world is full of information. AI coming in there as well, social media, everything. No, we're oversaturated with information. What I wanted to do was create a pathway. I wanted to create a space where you could finally and gently peel back the layers of shame that you have carried with you for years. I wanted to create a space and a place where you could understand how shame was created and how it is still influencing your life. And beyond awareness, I also wanted to create a space where you can finally begin releasing it. Because I simply do not want to spend another year that you're believing that you're broken. No, I don't want you to spend another year like that. Because you are not broken. I don't want you to spend another year believing that, oh, well, you're just like this. Because, let me tell you something. You're probably not just like this. Yeah? You're likely carrying beliefs that were never yours to begin with. You're very, very likely carrying baggage that you didn't even pack. But when these beliefs begin to soften, everything around you changes. The way you see yourself changes. The way you speak, the way you love, well, the way you receive and the way you give. And especially the way you show up in the world. And, of course, also the way you show up for yourself. So today I want to leave you with one simple question, yeah? And that's the following. If shame wasn't making your decisions, then tell me, what would your life look like? How would you speak? How would you love if shame was not making your decisions? How would you express yourself? How would you move through this beautiful world? Now just sit with that for a moment, because please know that that version of you already exists. And she or he is simply waiting underneath everything that you have learned to hide over the last years during your life. So thank you so much again for showing up today, for listening today, for spending your beautiful time with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, if this episode around shame touched something in you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram and tell me what came up for you while you were listening. And if you're really serious about it, and if you're ready to begin releasing the shame that's been holding you back, then know that the Unapologetic Path was created for exactly that. Of course, you will also find the link to that right in the description of this podcast episode. And until next time, please stay unapologetically you.